Kyapne kunding owo kenze nipe dakne junshin so kendo jinning ne so adapso dakde yeme tuje dakyu shingi lobshi. Kyapne kunding owo kenze nipe dakne junshin so kendo jinning ne so adapso dakde yeme tuje dakyu shingi lobshi. Kyapne kunding owo kenze nipe dakne junshin so kendo jinning ne so adapso dakde yeme tuje dakyu shingi lobshi. Yonten sange kuntan yamnaya kaden sange lekyang lakme kun Jinshin sawe lamar sawe de fakso drowe lo na chu agir chanchu sancho jungwa shinki lo. Good evening, or maybe it's afternoon, since you have the opportunity to really watch this talk at any time. I'm Allison Choying Zangmo, and I'm here introducing the Way of a Bodhisattva Offering sadhana practice. And we're going to start this practice Friday evening. But if you haven't done the practice before, and maybe even if you have, having a little bit of review you'll find really helpful. Because normally what happens is we're here in the shrine room with Rinpoche, and actually I'm not in the shrine room, I'm here at the retreat house in my practice room. I'll be heading down to Denver, a very fortunate turn of events compared to earlier this summer. Denver has really gotten its coronavirus load under control, so we're having just 15 of us doing the practice together, but getting to be in the shrine room and make the beautiful offerings on the shrine. So normally actually we do this practice in the springtime, but I put off doing it hoping for just this kind of fortunate situation where we're able to be in the shrine room, because the blessings in the shrine room, of course, are incredible, but also this practice depends on making many different kinds of offerings, and we're going to see that as we go through the sadhana. Some of those offerings are mental, some of them we're going to be making ourselves, but a lot of them are on the shrine. And so having the beautiful shrine here in front of us is going to be a great support, not just for us who are in the shrine room, but I think for everybody, because what we found out during the seven-line prayer retreat last August was that the people who weren't in the shrine room said they could still feel the blessings of the shrine room even in their own practice room. I thought that was amazing. So I think that a similar thing is going to happen, because this is another practice with very abundant blessings. And so let's start there. Why does this practice have so many blessings? Well, for myself, I think Rinpoche, Anya Rinpoche, really wanted to start this practice here in the States for many years, because this is a practice that was done at the Shedra in Tibet. Saradharma Kirti Rinpoche. So Rinpoche and I's Root Lama, who's on the wall behind me, he made this a very important practice. He taught Way of a Bodhisattva on an annual basis. But then in addition to, teaching on Way of a Bodhisattva, and of course, expecting students to practice Way of a Bodhisattva, they also did this practice, which is actually a practice that helps us to take and renew the Bodhisattva vow, but also to accumulate a great amount of merit while we're doing it. And it's kind of a special practice, because normally, if we're going to receive the Bodhisattva vow, the best situation is that we're receiving it directly from Anya Rinpoche or some other lineage holder who's bestowing it. But in order to even renew, or, our Bodhisattva vow is constantly getting flawed, or small breaks here and there, because bodhicitta is a really difficult practice. So none of us is keeping our Bodhisattva vow perfectly. And for that reason, Anya Rinpoche always says to our Sangha, whenever we have the opportunity to receive and renew the Bodhisattva vow, we should. And so this is an opportunity for us, even though Anya Rinpoche is in retreat, we're all going to be renewing our Bodhisattva vow 3 days in a row. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when we recite the sadhana. And then also in the mornings, we're doing a different text. So this is a practice. Can you see this? The Bodhisattva vow. It's also arranged by Patrul Rinpoche. It's much shorter than the sadhana practice. But this was actually the text that we used to recite before I had the full sadhana translated, and before the Sangha was ready to do this as a full sadhana practice. So in the mornings, we're going to be reciting from this Bodhisattva vow text. And since most of us don't own our own copy of it, that's going to be provided online. So you'll have it. And there's nothing to mark. We're going to read it straight through in English. So that will be easy. After we do that, I'm going to give some teachings, and then we're going to be contemplating some of the verses in chapters 1 and 2 of Way of a Bodhisattva. The reason that we're focusing on chapters 1 and 2 is because the sadhana includes chapters 1, 2, and 3. So we'll see that in their entirety, chapters 1, 2, and 3, and chapter 10 are written into the sadhana practice. But this spring, when we reviewed Way of a Bodhisattva, we only reviewed up to chapter number 2. We didn't start chapter number 3 yet, which we're going to do next month. So our contemplation is going to be restricted to the verses of chapters 1 and 2. I've selected those verses, and so we'll do some of that. Normally, Rinpoche gives teachings. When he teaches this practice, he often gives a short review of chapters 1, 2, and 3, especially in Mexico, when we've had more days to do this practice. Rinpoche has given more in-depth reviews of the verses in Way of a Bodhisattva because we have more time. But we don't have too much time. Rinpoche instructed us specifically that we're going to want to do the full sadhana 3 days in a row. So we'll start on Friday, and then we'll conclude on Sunday. So we have that text. And then everybody now, I think, should have their Way of a Bodhisattva Offering text. You're going to want to have this text with you during the review. Right now, if that wasn't clear. Not just the text, I'm guessing. I have like flags and tabs and notes written in my booklet. I'm guessing that you might want to have some of those things as well, because I'm going to tell you some things about how to do the sadhana. You may want to mark a page, or you may want to make a note. And so if you don't have that in front of you, while you're listening to me, you can just run and get it, or you can pause me. That's the good thing, I guess, about recording. And then I also have my Way of a Bodhisattva book, my root verses. The reason I have that is because when we contemplate certain verses, you may find it easier to locate it in this text. All the verses that we're going to contemplate this weekend are also in your sadhana. So if you don't have your hard copy of Way of a Bodhisattva, that'll be just fine as well. The verses are numbered. They're just sometimes they're broken up, and so you may have a harder time locating them. Other things that I have with me are, I have 2 sets of tiny offering bowls. I have one for me and one for Rinpoche. So Rinpoche can participate in our water offerings. And this year, one thing that we're going to be doing is making our own water offerings, especially so in the beginning of this practice, and then when we're accumulating the aspiration to good actions, which is a prayer that's found in the sadhana. And I'll explain a little bit more how to do that later, but I wanted to let you know. Many of us, if you're at home, you have water offering bowls on your shrine, like I have water offering bowls. So you could just be ready to change your water offering. You don't need to have personal offering bowls. These are very, very tiny and cute though. So that's kind of exciting. The reason I have them is because I'm going to put them on my table in front of me while I'm practicing in the shrine room. And I'm going to have a bottle of water with a lid because we're all very particular about our shrine room floor, which took many, many hours of work to install and doesn't like to be spilled on. So everybody in our shrine room is going to have a lid, and then also we're going to have something else like a Tupperware or a bowl with a lid to empty our water bowls into. You're going to need to dry your water bowls out and then re-offer them. And Tibetans, so this is a cool story, Rinpoche said that when Tibetans do this at the Shedra, they have the prayer memorized. So they're just doing it while they're reciting the prayer from memory. And I don't think that we're going to reach that bar, but we are going to make the water bowl offerings. And another quick thing I wanted to tell you about that is at the Shedra, so maybe just say there's 250 monks. For this practice time, they're going to accumulate 100,000 water bowl offerings. So 100,000 water bowl offerings means that collectively the 250 lamas have to recite the aspiration to good actions 100,000 times. And then each time they're reciting, they offer the water bowls. So this is it's a great offering practice. We're just doing it in this little baby step way. Rinpoche has been wanting to add the offering water bowls. And then he mentioned it to me, why didn't you do that? And then after I asked Sarah, like, can you post it and find out who needs them? Because people who are in the shrine rooms need their own water bowls and all those things. Rinpoche said, why are we making it so complicated? I said, Rinpoche, you told me to. That was funny. The other thing that we've added to this practice, which is traditional in Tibet, is small mandala offerings. I have 2 of these on my shrine here, and I'm going to bring one of them to the shrine room. And these mandalas are really cool. They're beaded, and at first I thought, that's kind of a weird mandala. And then Rinpoche said, well, Saradharma Kirti Rinpoche always used a mandala that looked pretty much just like that one, because at that time in Tibet there weren't a lot of, really high quality items available. And Saradharma Kirti thought these were great mandalas. So when we went to Nepal last year, a lot of us have them. And last year we did offer them in the shrine room. I think it was the first time. Our mandala offering on recording, I listened to, was very slow because I think everybody's concentrating on making their mandala offering. I don't know if David and I can reach the level of leading the sadhana that Rinpoche does. It's our first time. Whenever we lead a sadhana practice for the first time, it's always a little bit awkward. And so apologies for that. Friday night, we'll do our best. And, a lot of things we've never done before. So right now, I think those are the things that you need. You also need just your normal body, because there's a place where we're going to do prostrations. So those are things that we've added to the practice this year. And it's a great year to do this because a lot of us are at home. And if you are in the shrine room, you feel more involved. Even if you're not a Chöpön and you're not up working on the shrine, still you feel really involved because you're in the shrine room. One thing that we can think is that we have an advantage this year because now we're all at home and we have the chance to be our own Chöpön, and we have the chance to take care of our own shrine and make our own offerings. So, it's always good, I think, to think about the advantages and not just think about, it's kind of a drag that we can't all be together. And that we have to wear a mask in the shrine room. It's very, very hot. But thank God it's cooler than in August, because during the 7-line prayer retreat it was very, very hot. That was the period right before all of the wildfires started. I think it's cooled off a little. Up here in the mountains, it's about 67. It's pretty nice. It's still very dry, but we had a big snowstorm. And if anybody's, just wondering how Rinpoche is doing, he's doing great. He's just practicing hard every day, and it's a burden on him when I go to Denver to teach a program, because it's a lot of extra work, just the things I take care of for him. So we'll just think about him while we're practicing together and send him some energetic attending. He says cooking, his extra cooking, heating up the food, all those things. And he has to feed the dogs. That's normally my job. One thing I wanted to show you just before we start, this is really cool. This orchid. This is a Kadak Trutraling orchid. So somebody brought it, and the orchid died, and I put it in the window, and it regrew, and now it's blooming in my shrine room. So there have been others, but this is my first orchid to grow up here, and I added it into my shrine. Okay, so let's go on to the practice. First, let's just take a minute to generate bodhicitta and think, may any good that comes from doing this practice together be of benefit to all sentient beings, and may all sentient beings be placed in the state of enlightenment free from suffering. Okay. So some things I've already kind of gotten to in my opening notes. One thing I wanted to be sure to remind you all of, because this is something that Rinpoche covers every time, is the lineage of this practice. And if you're not remembering the details of Chapter 1, Way of a Bodhisattva, I want to remind you that this text, Way of a Bodhisattva, which was given directly to Shantideva from Manjushri, who received it from the Buddha Shakyamuni, it includes the Bodhisattva vow. So the Bodhisattva vow that we recite is included in the text. And so when we say the lineage, it's the lineage of Bodhisattva conduct. It's the lineage of, how a Bodhisattva lives. And it's the lineage of the Bodhisattva vow. And it's all this one beautiful text. And so generally, we can follow this through two longer lineages and one short lineage. And this is the short lineage. So I'm going to review just that lineage very quickly. So Shakyamuni gave this teaching to Manjushri and also to Vajrapani. And he gave this right before he passed into nirvana and made Manjushri and Vajrapani his regents. The short lineage goes through Manjushri. So if you recall the history of Way of a Bodhisattva, you'll remember that Shantideva was sitting up on the lion throne at Nalanda University, and that everyone was expecting to embarrass him because he seemed not that smart. And they invited him to give a Dharma teaching. And so he asked, do you want to hear a Dharma teaching that you've heard before or something you've never heard? And they wanted to hear a new Dharma teaching. And so Manjushri spoke directly the words of Way of a Bodhisattva to him, and he gave that teaching. And so that was the origin of the lineage, Manjushri to Shantideva. And we can think of this lineage in a very short way by then remembering that Pacharamshe is the reincarnation of Shantideva. And so the Bodhisattva vow text that we're reciting in the morning and the Way of a Bodhisattva offerings we're reciting in the afternoon, that both are arranged and partially composed by Pacharamshe, who is the perfect person to do that because he is the actual reincarnation of Shantideva. And then, we can just add a little bit more detail that helps us. This tradition of Way of a Bodhisattva, which is written by Shantideva, is, generally it's taught as part of the causal vehicle. So it's not part of the tantric vehicle. However, it's the essence of Mahayana Buddhism, we could say, but it's not part of the smaller subset of the tantric vehicle. And so this practice, offerings according to Way of a Bodhisattva, has been arranged in the style of a tantric offering practice, specifically in outer tantra. And for that reason, we should remember to eat vegetarian, to clean up our shrine room, to dress nicely, make some extra offerings. Of course, we should make extra offerings for this practice anyway. But all of these things are, kind of the style of the outer Kriya Tantra, where purity and cleanliness are emphasized. And so when we see the ritual aspects of this text, basically, one way that we can understand that is that Patrumshe is giving us even more methods to accumulate merit, and especially to attain some kind of blessing and realization from the practice. And the reason that I would say that is because when you go through the 9 vehicles, starting from in the causal vehicle, but the vehicles of the Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddha, and then moving up and then into the Mahayana, and then into the outer tantras, inner tantras, and then of course up to the pinnacle of Ati Yoga. As you ascend the vehicles, the blessings and the accomplishment which can be attained through that practice are going to be more and more profound. And so by sort of taking the way of a Bodhisattva as a general Mahayana text and elevating it to the level of an outer Tantra, and especially the way that Anya Rinpoche teaches, just because the practice is written in the style of an outer Tantra doesn't mean that that practice is restricted to being in the outer Tantras. Because if we're able to practice in the style of Mahayoga or Anayoga or Ati Yoga, for example, when we're making offerings, if we're really working at generating those offerings from the mind, working at the visualization, hearing all sounds as mantra, these different methods and techniques that belong to the inner tantras, the practice actually becomes elevated to that level. So much of this practice is, of course, the sacred words and the arrangement of Patrumshe and this extremely short lineage. I meant to mention then that our root Lama Saradharma Kirti Rinpoche, he has a very close lineage tie to Patrumshe, and in fact his previous incarnation, Minyat Konzang Sonam, was a direct disciple of Patrumshe. So there's a very close lineage, it's a very short lineage to this practice, which means that, this is a very powerful practice for our Sangha. And I'm so happy that everybody is joining, even though we're not all here together, and I'm not even there yet. But I'm happy. And I'm also happy that I put the practice off a little bit so that we have the chance for some of us to do it together. Okay. Let's go ahead and open the sadhana. So the reason that we're doing this is because I want to go through it. I want to make sure that you know what to do where, and that we don't need to stop and do that later, which is why I want you to be prepared to take some notes in case you need to. Just as an aside, in our Sangha, we read many, many practices in Tibetan. And if you're not used to doing that, just the short reason we do that is because Anya Rinpoche believes that Tibetan is the living language of the Dharma still, and that all of the blessings of the Dharma have not yet been transferred into the English language. In order for that to happen, we need some realized Western practitioners to be able to compose these texts into English and really imbue them with blessings, so that the language and the realization of the tradition kind of mix together. But right now, we don't have that. So instead, we're doing the practice in mostly English, I would say, but there are sections, many of the ritual sections we're doing in Tibetan. And one thing that you can know about that is that the ritual practice is often a reflection of what's being explained in the text, but it's being given in a ritual style. So we have both. We have, just the straight text, the way that it's normally read, and then we have a little bit different interpretation of it into the ritual style. And so it's really the ritual style that we're reading in Tibetan. If you've never read the sadhana before, feel free to just read it straight through in English. If you're in the shrine room, don't do that out loud. But if you're at home, there's no need to feel like you need to read the sadhana in Tibetan if you have no idea what's going on. So just do whatever is comfortable for you. But I still want you to know what's happening, because maybe on the third day, you'll want to do it the way the group is doing it. It actually starts out seeming a little bit hard. And then, just like Shantideva said, anything that you habituate yourself to becomes easy. So you're going to find that the sadhana becomes easy, I hope. And then the exception to this is that there are 2 long confession practices that are in the middle of the sadhana. And I, in fact, in my notes, had it written that we would read them in Tibetan, but when I reviewed how Rinpoche had us do the sadhana last year, he had us do them in English. They are part of the ritual, part of the text, but Onion Rinpoche felt, we really need to connect with the meaning of the confessions. It's so important to really purify ourselves and become the most pure and suitable vessel for the Bodhisattva vow that we can, because the Bodhisattva vow is incredibly hard to keep, so it's just part of the training. And also we have 2 confession practices, one more in a Mahayana style, and again one in a Mantrayana style. That's a pretty cool thing too. So I'm just going through the different sections of the text. When I do that, the very first thing I come to when I open it up, of course there's a table of contents which could be helpful. Page 1 starts with the sutra that recalls the Noble Three Jewels. And we're reading this in English. And I just wanted to say, the thing that Rinpoche really emphasizes about this is that the 3 jewels are the basis for Dharma practice. They're our refuge, they're our support. And so if we don't remember the special good qualities of the 3 jewels, the rest of the practice is kind of dry and may not have that many blessings, or may not be a really profound source of inspiration for us, because we haven't connected with just the very basis of the Dharma. And so it's important when we're reading this sutra that it's not a long sutra. Some sutras are long. This is really short. It's important, though, that we really try to generate devotion and really try to appreciate the Dharma. And, of course, not just the Buddhas who came before, but all of the living teachers who are working so hard to keep the Dharma alive and to benefit beings in the best way that they can. And of course the Sangha. Traditionally, Sangha means noble Sangha, like the Bodhisattvas on the Bhumis. But here we should appreciate our Dharma brothers and sisters too. So we read that, and then we go straight into Weva Bodhisattva chapter 1, which is, besides the other chapters, it's the best chapter. It's actually, I think, my favorite chapter. But we'll read straight through chapter 1, all in English. And then I think in chapter 1, we just remember the main topic of the chapter is remembering the special features, the good qualities and benefits of bodhicitta. And, as you're reading, really try to generate that feeling of appreciation and devotion, and really wanting to be able to generate bodhicitta purely. I mean, imagine the merit of a single instant of pure bodhicitta. And none of us has even a single instant of pure bodhicitta, because none of us is free from self-attachment for a single instant. And so that appreciation and inspiration and devotion is really important for us. just to go past where we are. Okay, so then basically if we turn to page 24, we're going to get to the end of chapter 1, and then we're going to get to a ritual section. And this section really has to do with, so this is almost always part of Vajrayana practice unless we're in the level of Ati Yoga. But we're going to invoke wisdom beings here. And so if you're at home, you're going to invite them to your house. And we're going to invite them into the shrine room. And so one of the reasons we've made it clean and beautiful and we've made all these offerings is because, we want it to be a place where they're delighted, where they want to come and remain with us. And we're relying on these wisdom beings, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, whoever comes for us. I'm hoping Padmasambhava is going to come to the shrine room. I'm going to invite him. And so in any case, we're using this ritual practice as a way to directly invoke them, because when we take the Bodhisattva vow, we need the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas there to bless us and to witness taking the Bodhisattva vow. And that's an important part of the practice. So we can't skip over this part. So there's a couple different sections, and they're all done in Tibetan. So blessing the land, you can read through it yourself, but it's blessing the entire universe. This is the Earth's surface everywhere. But basically, even the room that you're in, you're thinking of as just being like a beautiful, pure, here it says, smooth like lapis lazuli. So, a precious and beautiful, marvelous place that is probably different from the place that we normally live. And then we have blessing the offerings. And so that has to do with your shrine. And you can really just think of it as, your shrine, which hopefully everybody made some extra effort to make beautiful offerings on your shrine. Whatever level that is, that's fine. These are like the actual offerings. And then on top of that, we're going to try to generate as many beautiful offerings into offering clouds. So it's like we're filling the entire universe with these offering clouds. And so we have 2 different mantras that we recite in order to do that. And we don't translate the meaning of mantras, but these mantras are to invoke offering clouds. And one way that you can think of a mantra is that they've been arranged and spoken by the Mahasiddhas of this tradition. And so even if we don't understand them, we can be sure that they're powerful and are full of blessings because they're the speech of the realized masters. And then invoking the Buddhas and their retinues as a field of merit. And again, so we're actually invoking the Buddhas and their retinues. And then we ask them to remain here. And then on page 31, we get to the first mandala offering. This is called a preparatory mandala. The reason is because we're preparing to take the Bodhisattva vow. And this is a pretty normal thing. If you have been around Vajrayana, then you know that before you receive something, you request it. So we've brought the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas here, and now we're going to offer them a mandala to request them to give us the Bodhisattva vow. The mandala offering is done in Tibetan. It has a particular melody, which hopefully we're going to do really well. And it's okay if you don't know it. It's totally fine. You can recite it along with us in Tibetan. You can read along with us. And if you don't know how to read the mandala offering, I'm assuming you don't have a mandala set, because if you have a mandala set, you probably know how to offer the mandala. So then, instead, you would really just be thinking to yourself, may I offer the entire phenomenal world as an offering? And the reason that the reason that is the meaning of this mandala offering is because basically that's what you're invoking. You're basically, from the point of view of the Abhidharma, you are arranging the continents in this world, and then you're also offering everything which is beautiful, abundant, and blessed. And you're making that as an offering. And so if you're doing this, from your heart, this would be many, many fold better than, these normal offerings that are on the shrine, which you could just sort of haphazardly put there. But no one could offer the entire phenomenal universe from their mind without really making some effort and being sincere. So if you haven't read the mandala, if you haven't done a mandala offering before, I hope that you'll understand this to be a very beautiful and wonderful practice. And I heard some different stories about it. One story was, Rinpoche likes to say that Jen Tsongkhapa and his followers, that mandala was their main practice, and they were constantly taking their mandala set everywhere and making offerings. These are practitioners with great amount of merit and realization, and so I for myself always find their practices very trustworthy. There's another story, and I apologize for not recalling who the practitioner is, but basically this practitioner, anytime that he had a negative thought or perhaps felt that he had infringed on his bodhisattva vow, would immediately stop anything and get out his mandala set and make a mandala offering. And so that again really speaks, I think, to the tradition of this text, where this is a great offering, and also it's a kind of reparation. And we can also think of it as, taking a break from the mind's ordinary negative activity. And so we're making this offering, and we're concentrating on offering and arranging this beautiful offering. Symbolically, we're doing it with our mandala set. If you haven't seen it before, you'll see it. Anyway, just work at it, and if you have learned how to do the mandala offering, I'm sure that it'll be easy to keep up, and if you've kind of learned how to do it, then just use it as a practice time. On 35, you're going to see that there's two endings to the mandala offering. And we've included both of them because there might be an occasion to use either one of them, but we're going to use the one on the top, I think. Yes. So it's at the end, and you can read it. So I'm offering all of the abundant wealth of gods and humans, complete and flawless, to the root lama, the lineage lamas, the Buddhas in the 10 directions, the retinue of the bodhisattvas, in order to excellently receive the precious Mahayana bodhisattva vows. So we're specifically making this offering in preparation for that. And then just, we do the end of the offering. There's a few more prayers. On 37, we go back into English, and we recite chapter 2. And chapter 2 is interspersed with some ritual activity. Specifically, chapters 2 and 3 contain the 7-branch offering. And the 7-branch offering is ordinarily what we do before we really make a formal mandala offering or like a teaching request. So that's incorporated right into the text of the Way of the Bodhisattva. Specifically, chapter 2 includes 2 of the 7-branch offerings. So offering, which is an antidote to greed, and confession, which is an antidote to aggression. So we can kind of look through it. The first section is just about offerings, so that's the offering section. And then interspersed in here we have some more ritual practice. When we get to 41, we have a cleansing ritual. It's an offering, and it's also a purification. And other than that, we do this ritual practice for a great many things. We do it as part of the practices that we do for the deceased. We do it when we consecrate sacred items like statues and things like that. It's a very common ritual practice. And I don't really know much more about it, but you will see that parts of the cleansing ritual are referred to in the Way of a Bodhisattva root text. So that's why it's been included as a ritual practice. And I also think if you don't know anything else, that's what makes it a trustworthy practice. Shantideva said, this is what you need to do in order to master Bodhisattva conduct. Then we have 12 mentally arrayed offerings, which go along with this cleansing ritual. At 44, we go back to English because we come back to the root verses of Way of a Bodhisattva. Oh, well, I am wrong. This chapter 2 also includes prostration, which is one of the 7 branches. Hold on just a second. And then we get to taking refuge. And right after we take refuge, we're gonna do the 2 confession practices. Rinpoche said that we should do 3 prostrations before the confession practices start, but I thought whether or not they do this in Tibet this year, we're going to do 3 prostrations at the beginning of each confession because it seems like a nice thing to do. We're going to do it that way. So right after the prostrations and taking refuge in the root text of Way of the Bodhisattva, we switch to these confession practices, and we're going to read these in English. The Bodhisattva's confession is basically taking homage and supplicating many, many different bodhisattvas and then making confessions to them. And it will be self-apparent. There's nothing you really need to know. When you read the text, it will make sense. And then on 62, again, before we start that, we're going to do 3 more prostrations. And then we're going to read this general confession. And this general confession is specifically one they use at the Shedra. In the Shedra, the Sangha splits into 2 groups. And when they're repairing their Vinaya vows, they also do this general confession. And they prostrate to each other. So taking the, not just repairing their own vows, but also assuming that they've had, wrong view or negative thoughts or emotions towards their Dharma brothers. So we read this one 3 times, but we do the whole thing in English. And we keep going all the way to page 67, where we come back to page 62. I thought that you may want to tab the general confession in your book. Sorry about that, in 62, because you read it 3 times. It's just a little easier to find the beginning of the practice if you have it tabbed, but you don't have to. Okay, and then we're going back to the Way of the Bodhisattva's confession to cast away faults. So then we have the Way of the Bodhisattva's confession practice. And we recite that all the way until we get to chapter 3. So Way of a Bodhisattva, chapter 3, is going to start on page 86. And then we have the rest of the 7 branches. So we have rejoicing, and then on the very next page, the request to turn the wheel of Dharma. Requesting the Buddhas to remain, and then dedication. So these are all in chapter 3, and we can read all the way to the end of chapter 3. Hang on. Okay, all the way up to 96. When we get to page 96, we will get to another ritual part of the practice. So reciting the lineage of the Way of a Bodhisattva. And so we see right at the beginning the information that I already recited. So the Lord of the Shakya, Shakyamuni, and then Manjughosha, Manjushri, Shantideva. So we see that part of the lineage. And then as we're reading through, we see the long aspect of the lineage. If we don't skip, directly to Patra Rinpoche as being the emanation of Shantideva, then we can understand how the lineage follows until we get all the way to Organ Jigme Chuki Wangbo on page 98. And so he's Patra Rinpoche. When we recite a lineage prayer, Rinpoche has taught us at other times, specifically I'm thinking of teachings on Riggs and Dupa, where Rinpoche says, not only are you invoking the blessings of the lineage, but you're really ensuring that the practice goes well and free of obstacles by reciting all of the names of the lineage masters. And so that seems an important thing to recall as you're reciting this in Tibetan, if that's what you're doing, or even if you're reading it in English, is, really generating devotion and feeling a connection with all of the lineage masters, and also requesting their blessing, requesting that we can embody the practice or experience the blessings of the practice just the way that the lineage masters of the past did. Of course, we may not have their realization or may not even have their capacity for Dharma, but certainly we're capable of something. We're doing the practice and we're doing it properly. So I'm pretty sure something good is going to happen. Right after we recite the names of the lineage masters, we do another mandala offering. You'll notice that most of the mandala offering is going to be exactly the same. The main thing is that the section at the end, actually this one is the same as the last one. We're going to again make the mandala offering in order to excellently receive the Mahayana Bodhisattva vows. So in the beginning we had two options, and we took the one which is the same as this one. Then, on 104, we're going to actually recite the words of the Bodhisattva vow. The way that we normally do this is once in English, twice in Tibetan. If you are not used to taking the Bodhisattva vow with us, if you are, you probably are used to doing it this way. If you don't take the Bodhisattva vow often and you're not used to what it means yet, I would probably say I would recite it 3 times in English. Knowing the meaning of the Bodhisattva vow is pretty important. So either way, whichever you want, as long as you follow David, you will be able to follow the pattern of how we're reciting it. The Bodhisattva vow ends then on the top of 106, where we go back to Wave of Bodhisattva, chapter 3. Then we have rejoicing. After we get to the end of chapter 3, we do one more mandala offering, and this is also traditional. In our tradition, we offer a mandala of gratitude. So we offer a mandala to prepare and to request. We offer a mandala right as we're receiving it, and then we offer a mandala because we're grateful that these wisdom beings came and they made it possible for us who don't have a lot of realization and merit to still receive the Bodhisattva vow and to do the practice in a really authentic way. And so we offer the mandala of gratitude. And this one is going to be a little bit different. The bottom of 113, if you read the English, we offer it to show appreciation for having excellently received the precious Mahayana Bodhisattva vows. And then one thing to notice here, you may want to mark this, is that we hold the mandala up until the top of 115. So when we recite the prayer to generate bodhicitta 3 times, after the 3rd time we dump our mandala, so we hold it longer than we do in the other sections. That's written into the text, but you can highlight it if you want to, or you can mark it just so you remember. And then you continue reading. These are all still in Tibetan. On 116, what we normally do is we sometimes recite this King of Aspiration prayers here, and then we sometimes recite chapter 10 of Way of a Bodhisattva, so we alternate those. But what we're going to do this time is going to be a little bit different. I suggest you put a tab on page 116 and then another one on 148, which is where that prayer ends. So right now we're going to skip that prayer and we're going to recite the dedication chapter 10 of Way of a Bodhisattva in English. And so we do that. That chapter will finish on 176, and then we will recite the remaining. There's a couple of short prayers at the end, and we'll recite those in Tibetan. So not a lot of Tibetan recitation, and some of you might be just doing that in English as well. Once we finish to the end of the sadhana, we're going to go back to King of Aspiration prayers, which was on 116, and we're going to go ahead and recite it in English. But on 119, there is something inserted that's not normally here. So 119 at the top has the offering cloud mantra, and then it has an offering prayer. I offer an inconceivable ocean of offering clouds to the oceanic gathering of victors. May an ocean of sentient beings become Buddhas, and may the ocean of samsara dry up. So this is where we are technically offering our water bowls. But what I suggest is that right before we start the King of Aspiration prayers, we take a really quick break, not like a bathroom break, but we take a break to clean, dump out our water bowls, clean them, make new offerings, because we don't have it memorized. So in Tibetan, they would just be doing it while they recite. So we'll just take a really short break. Let's refresh our water bowls. And then when we get to page 119, I think if you have a bumba, if you have one like on your shrine, a bumba like this, when you recite the offering cloud mantra, you can bless your little offering bowls like that. Or the Triplins will do that on the shrine. But otherwise, you just recite the mantra 3 times. And then when you recite the prayer, normally the way that Rinpoche says is you're really trying to mentally array what the prayer says. So if you're offering inconceivable ocean of offering clouds, really in your mind, you're trying to expand your mind to fill all of space with these clouds of offerings. And your water bowls are like the representation of that. So for example, when we do other kinds of practices, we have a principle, like Sir, I'm doing the practice for this person, but it's standing in for all sentient beings. And this is similar. So I'm making this small water bowl offering, which is nothing. I mean, water costs no money. And right now, nobody's having a lot of fights over water, or this amount of water anyway. That may change in the future, unfortunately. But that is standing in for offering everything. So I did this one small thing, and now my mind is going to multiply it. And you use the prayer to do that. So through this virtue, may all beings perfect the accumulations of merit and wisdom, and arising from this merit and wisdom, may the 2 sacred bodies be attained. So that's been inserted if you're used to doing this practice, or this prayer, which everybody in our Sangha does this prayer a lot. That's why that prayer is inserted there, is so that we have the opportunity to make another offering. I also think it would be really wonderful to find out if everybody's making the water bowl offering, because then we could count the number of water bowl offerings we made, and at the end of the practice we could let Rinpoche know, as a collective Sangha, we made this many offerings. So like, for example, in the shrine room, if there's 15 of us, and then I count twice because I'm counting Rinpoche, 16 of us, and then, that times 4. So we would have 3 days of that. But if we were able to find out everybody, it might be easier on Zoom if people let us know if you're not participating in the water bowl offering, because then whoever's counting will know, okay, we had this many total people, and then these people opted out. Maybe you're not used to having a shrine, or you're not comfortable, that's fine. So anyway, it'd be great to be able to get a count of that. And in a similar way, mandala offering, because we make 3 mandala offerings for every sadhana practice. It would be wonderful to know how many people made the mandala offering. So maybe if you're opting out, you could let them know. So we'll assume that everybody's making the water and mandala offerings, unless you let them know in the comment on Zoom that you're not doing it, because then we just won't count you. Anyway, then you read all the way to the end of the prayer. And after you read to the end of the prayer, you just go back to 116. We pause. We make another water offering. Right now, I've planned for us to do 3 recitations at the end of the sadhana, but I actually don't know exactly how long the sadhana is going to take. So we may do more. It would be great to be able to do 5, maybe. So we'll just see how the time goes, but we'll do at least 3. And then at the end, I think we'll just go back to 184, and we'll just recite these very last dedications, the prayer for Sarjama Kirti Rinpoche, and then the prayer to Longchenpa and Jigme Lingpa, which just come at the very end of the booklet, which we've already read, but we'll do them again. And I don't know if we do the long Romo, David and Lindrup, the first time that we complete the sadhana, I don't know that we need to do it both times, but I will do whatever you guys think is best. Just wanted to point out that if we read those again, we may want to keep the long Romo until the end of the recitations of King of Aspiration prayers, since we're going to go back and read those again. I hope that made sense. Not to other people, just to David and Lindrup. Okay, and then I'm just checking what else I had on my list. That there was a prayer list, and we'll have prayers for the living and prayers for the deceased. So normally this aspiration to good actions is one of the dedications that we do, especially for the deceased. When we do 49 days of practice for someone, we always include this prayer. And so it's a very common prayer that we use to pray for people. And so I thought it would be really great to also add that to this practice. So hopefully everybody has already started writing down. I guess now you may have just been reminded to go to that link, which should have been in the email that helped you find this talk. And writing down names of people to pray for. And the way that we do that is similar to what I explained about the water offering bowls. It's sort of like these names stand in for all sentient beings. So of course we're dedicating the merit for all sentient beings, and for all sentient beings to attain the state of enlightenment free of suffering, for all beings who are in the bardos to, to be able to leave the bardos and arrive in Pure Lands and attain the state of enlightenment. But right now, these people are the principles that are standing in for everybody else. So don't forget that even though we're reading the names and we're making the karma connection for the people who we've written down, that we're also dedicating for everybody. So the last thing I have is a request from Anya Rinpoche, and that request is that Anya Rinpoche would like to put up more prayer flag poles up here at Kadak Chujaling. These prayer flag poles have 3-meter or 9-foot prayer flags on them, and in Park County where we live, the wind blows a lot. Sometimes it blows like 40 miles an hour, and we actually have already changed our prayer flags. They shred. I've never seen prayer flags actually shred like that. So we have 8 so far. Rinpoche would like to put up 10 more. And so Rinpoche wonders if any of the people who are attending the program would like to sponsor one of the 10 prayer flag poles, or perhaps one prayer flag pole costs too much money for you to sponsor yourself and you'd like to have a small group of Sangha members together offer a prayer flag pole. That's also fine. So there's 10 available, and Cody, who put the other prayer flag poles up, we discussed it and we priced them at $130 a piece, and that includes the actual steel pole, all the hardware and the cement. As for the actual prayer flags, if you purchased a sadhana text, you have already contributed to the prayer flags. All the proceeds from the sadhana text have gone to purchase many, many prayer flags from Nepal. And so those will come here and be put up. If you would like to do that, all you need to do is let Sarah know, and I think everybody knows how to contact her on Facebook or by replying to one of the emails that she sent, and that would be wonderful. Okay, let's all close with the entering the city to omniscience. So David can lead that at the end of the talk, and I'm really looking forward to doing the sadhana together with everyone. I also wanted to let you know that tonight is not a good time to ask questions, of course. What I'd like everybody to do is, even if you had a question about tonight, write it down, and then when we do the sadhana the first time tomorrow, why don't you see if your question gets resolved? A lot of times when you're doing it as a group, it all makes sense and it's not that difficult. But also on Saturday morning and also on Sunday morning, I'll take questions. So feel free to submit that. Would be to John Magoon. And everybody should know how to get in contact with him. He is one of your hosts on Zoom. So you could send that to him, or you could also send it to john@organconjuring.org. You can submit something that way. So it would be great to be able to clear up questions about how to do the practice, or if there's anything about the ritual, or of course Way of the Bodhisattva, which we're going to be contemplating together, or any other question that you have. I'm happy to take those questions, and looking forward to a very special weekend with everybody. Thanks for joining us.